afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast news section here with me, your host, Imperial Dane. Today's topic will be the patches released yesterday. And, well, it's certainly a patch. Of course, we got some bits to it. Overall, though, we weren't able to really test it, and there might be some issue with that. In fact, there seems to be an issue with raid tactics, which actually doesn't disable itself at all. So, that'll probably require a hot fix. But for now, let's go through the notes here. Squad formations, they're basically changing a bunch of stuff here. Nothing big here. Commander abilities, cluster bombs are basically sort of being changed. They aren't quite as, wipeable with them. Commando doctrine sort of ability here being slightly changed. No longer speed boost, a bit cheaper. Takes long to recharge, but gives you a bigger accuracy bonus. It's sort of more aggressive in a sense, particularly with units with submachine guns. It will be quite nasty. Smoke rates, some few changes there. Royal Engineers loses stand fast against flamethrower instead, meaning the British now have two doctrines with access to flamethrowers. Hold down. Cheaper to build or faster to build, but don't shoot faster, but they still have the range. So I mean, it's sort of already hit sort of cast hold down, which is already barely utilized into question further. I mean, it wasn't the speed it took to put it down, it's just like you're mobilizing a tank, and in most cases, it's just going to get shot to bits by anti-tank guns, so it feels overall questionable. Stun grenade loses some damage there because apparently it's still too good. I mean, it'll probably still be utilised, but certainly it will be less effective, but still be used to, stop the Americans from charging at you, which is primarily what's utilised at, just stopping riflemen from charging at you. So we got some population changes there. Tiger slightly more expensive, Puma slightly cheaper, 250 half-track, which better is in the usage, cheaper, I guess. Stug more population, 2 to 2, slightly less, Grenadiers more population for some reason. Pack 40 slightly less, Command Panther more, Yak Panther 4 more, Stuka less, Puma less, looks less. Basically, they're also the case the overcommands basically get slightly buffed there. The Americans gain some increases, Pershing, Jackson, half-track less, Stewart less, the Major a lot, notably less, and the trucks there sort of less as well. Soviets, a bit more for the IS-2. Issue-5 gains a bit of boost, conscripts gain a slight there, Guards rifle as well, Scout car less, and the T-70 becomes less population-wise as well. And the Brits there, some smaller modifications. There's one particular, the British one being notably a bit higher. Then particularly with bolsters should help out a bit, but overall not a lot. Mortars overall getting changed. They can sort of work better now versus garrisons, basically. Overall, and basically now their veterancy range bonuses have actually now changed for being more accurate with their barrages. Wehrmacht 1 basically gets nerfed, though the smoke range barrage there gets increased. That's nice, I guess, but it gets nerfed. So I'm not entirely sure again why they're doing it. They seem to forget, there's a difference between the faction, the Wehrmacht with the smaller squads and fighting against larger squads and a lot of things. Kind of need mortars that perform better, but apparently that was too much. Some of the Wehrmacht mortar after it gets nerfed. Light infantry gun gets buffed, so match up with the mortars a bit, since that wasn't quite nearly as good. Mortar after it gets nerfed, basically, to an extent. So that's nice. That one actually was kind of nuts, in particular something people found out eventually. US of Mortar gains range, but on the other hand its AoE gets nerfed because it's early available. Of course, while they don't mention it, it's also used against smaller squads, and I really think that's something that sort of gets missed in these calculations. Generally, again, Wehrmacht mortars are generally used against larger squads, Allied mortars against smaller squads. There needs to be some kind of balance, in particular when you're fighting against someone with 4-man squads, and that I think it also makes it important the things were changed there. Pack Howitzer gets slight buff there as well. Overall, in most senses, though the AoE damage is slightly switched up a bit there. British mortar emplacements basically get buffed because those really need to be buffed. Not a fan of that one, to be honest. The mortar pit to an extent was already an attractive choice, particularly on smaller maps where it can be difficult to take out, and this, it feels overdone. So mortars basically get the same changes essentially as the other mortars. Hey, mortar loses a squad member, so it's slightly easier to kill, but it's still a 5-man squad, which is going to mortar crew, which is going to be tricky to take out, and still it's really fast in getting out of there. So I'm not entirely sure how much of a big change this is going to be. Snipers will be sort of nerfed in a sense, mostly by buffing their counters. Overall, sadly they did not apply some of the other changes they apparently had thought about here. But basically just by increasing the overall counters there. Apparently this 222 had a penalty on its actual machine gun and killing snipers. Why would they even do that? Like it was supposed to be the counter and they add a penalty to murdering snipers on it. Oh, good lord. Apparently the Puma now also works as a counter to it. So yeah, overall sniper counters being increased and overall make better. That's good. Panther changes. Wehrmacht Panthers being made more expensive, gain slightly more range, more health technically, which of course means the health bonus lose from veterans who's lost. They gain less armor. They gain some armor back with the veterancy bonus. So I'm not a huge fan of this overall. But basically this just means the Oberkommando Panther gets buffed since it gets a notably higher rate of fire and it's more accessible and works with bigger squads. I mean overall the Oberkommando is going to love this change basically. The Wehrmacht one, I'm a lot less sure. I mean overall the issue still remains. Wehrmacht Tier 4 is not massively useful in terms of just the amount of resources you have to pour into it. And this doesn't particularly help at times. I mean, I'm not going to write off the Panther entirely. I'm definitely going to disagree with possibly in its best spot yet. That just, feels again like they're just trying to, make us toe the line rather than just, the reality. Because I'm reasonably sure, again, the Wehrmacht Panther's not its best spot yet. But Oberkommandos Panther, probably. But the Wehrmacht Panther, again, the main issue is Wehrmacht Tier 4 is the only Tier 4. Essentially, in sort of reality, it's either that or it's a Tier 5. Either way, it's not equal with any other late game, essentially. Really expensive, time consuming, and requires a lot more effort for most of the allies to get to their late game. And in that sense, the Panther just doesn't quite fulfill, the promises and all the investment that's supposed to be there. Plus, again, you're working with 4-man squads, which again are much more likely to get wipes. Again, there's just this constant manpower bleed as the Wehrmacht, at risk being high on the others. So, again, it just feels like they don't know what to do with the Wehrmacht Tier 4. And I think they need to just, next patch, just go, alright, we're going to get Dane to do this because apparently we don't have a clue as to what we want to do with Wehrmacht Tier 4 because apparently they don't really. I mean, if they don't know what to do, they should get someone at least has a clue about it, and I'm probably one that has got best to clue about what to do with the Wehrmacht Tier 4 because at least I can, vocalise there's an issue there in terms of design. And again, that's kind of the issue. Wehrmacht Tier 4 just isn't quite there because, again, it's just an utterly separate tier that's just been consistently nerfed. So there needs to happen something there. But again, Oberkommando, this is pretty good. They just get a better Panther now, which for them is just great. For the Wehrmacht, again, it's just sort of, not again. Moving on to actual Wehrmacht changes. The 2-2 gets cheaper, gains a slight accuracy bonus to that range, and apparently the 2mm gun created light covers it doesn't do that, and the cracked machine gun now sort of sticks to the attack commands, which is good. Overall, this makes it faster. You can sort of get more of them without necessarily getting penalized. I mean, getting 2 2-2-2s now means you only pay 400 man rather than 500 manpower, and that's a difference. I mean, that means it's slightly more cost efficient, which was one of the issues. It was not very cost efficient at all. Like, you're just pouring in so much manpower. And the Wehrmacht is a really manpower intensive faction in many ways. So, partly again because so much just goes into tech, and because you just have a higher chance of losing squads. So again, like manpower is so much more essential. So just this change there makes it a lot more viable. In part because it also means it's slightly more comparable with light allied armor. It's not longer just massively more expensive. It's still expensive, but it's not massively more. So this I think is going to help make the 2-2 slightly more useful and viable. Panzergrenadiers there now 100 munitions. Should make Panzergrenadiers more viable. Not a bad idea. I'm sad they didn't add the smoke grenades to the Panzergrenadiers. Apparently that was just too much, I guess. I don't know. But they should certainly make Panzergrenadiers just more of an idea. 100 munitions, 120. I mean, there's a bit of a difference. Then again, makes them sort of more interesting as a choice. The Sturmpanzer here gets something interesting. Basically, it loses some AoE at the, shall we say, through the bit there where they sort of can really murder stuff. On the other hand, it gains a lot more AoE overall. So I mean, basically, it becomes a lot more, shall we say, put in particular. Also, we can see here like the sort of far AoE also now does more damage compared to before. So I mean, overall, the Sturmpanzer, while not maybe able to just nuke stuff as easily, again where you could sort of attack and sort of get a good wipe, overall deals a lot more damage now. So I mean, overall the impact on say large units and blobs is going to be a lot more impactful, and you're not necessarily too reliant on just having to attack ground tech to get anything out. You can sort of have it auto fire and it'll still actually hurt the enemy. So this is in some ways better for some players. Of course, it's going to be less amazing, but I think overall the Sturmpanzer should perform a bit better with this. In fact, a bit more consistently. Command Panzer loses some of its bonus there, so it's down to 10% at this. Again, this is on one of those notes you just have to ask, well, why not just give it something else if you're just going to keep pushing it down? So, And Stu G, the Stuke's high rate of fire is disproportionate to its cost, particularly when produced in numbers. Well, you kind of had to produce it in numbers to fight, the Allied numbers. I mean, it has to be built in numbers. It's, you're not going to build one Stuke in most cases because it's not going to cut it. Particularly not when they actually nerfed its rate of fire. You really have to build it in numbers now. Anyways, I mean, it's not really changing anything in a larger degree. I mean, it's going to suck a bit. The suit's slightly slower overall, but I mean, you're still going to have to build in numbers. I mean, you're still going to have to get at least 2 of them to fight the enemy. Because, again, otherwise they're not going to cut in particular. Now, again, 1 more is even less going to cut it. So, I mean, this just seems like a weird change, really. And, again, it just seems like they keep nerfing this Duke because it can actually hurt Allied armor. Yeah. And then we get the Tigers. And, again, they nerfed it after talked about maybe do something about the Tigers, but I have to say the nerf they applied to it I think is pretty just lazy. It's 150 fuel. It doesn't really change anything about the Tigers and how it's used in most cases. Most people use it like, maybe sort of as an emergency unit when they don't have the resource anyways to bother going for medium tanks. They just go for the Tigers. I mean, 100 fuel manpower or fuel cost is not really going to change anything. It just seems more like, a symbolic change in a lot of cases. So, I mean, obviously in some cases will have an impact, but I think in the vast majority of cases, this is not going to, make a massive impact on Tiger races being called. It doesn't really change anything. Like, it's, again, it just feels like they're just sort of trying to treat the problem at a surface level rather than just looking to the core issue. Again, it's kind of like Wehrmacht here for, like, they're not really fixing the issue, they're just sort of slightly shifting it about. Oberkornrus now starts for this fuel. Sturm Pioneer Stun Grenade gets nerfed more, they did particularly do a lot of damage. Looks on mechanized rating costs less now, slightly, and the Lux is slightly faster build, so that becomes more accessible. They're essentially slightly reverting some of the nerfs they applied there. And the 250 17 half track there basically has slightly less oppression, and the smoke now is more expensive. It's been changed to its veterancy bonus. I mean, that was good. The 250 to 117 was a bit too good overall. So that should probably increase the overall number of strategies the Oberkommanders can pursue now that looks is slightly more attractive now. Moving on here, so Sniper gets nerfed quite aggressively, so basically it's more in line with other snipers. And basically it's actually more counterable alongside the 2-2 buff, which is good. Counter-scope submachine guns now just cost more from 40 to 60. This basically means you now have to pay more for, say, going for 4 submachine guns. We could previously go for that. You can only go for 3 submachine guns now, roughly. So, I mean, that makes a bit of difference. Overall, it doesn't mean the submachine is less good. It just means you can less quickly snowball into a bunch of them. Slightly bigger nerf is actually the issue 6, taking a bit of hit there to its rate of fire. Basically the same on the sort of level of the Stoops. I mean, again, it doesn't really change a lot. You're still going to get a bunch of them essentially. I mean, it just means medium armor is going to get less crushed right away. But it doesn't really change the fact in a lot of cases you're just going to go for a bunch of them and take on heavy armor. I mean, the issue with the Epsilon 6 was its high penetration, not necessarily its high rate of fire. So, I don't know. I mean, it's going to probably still make the Issue 5 look a bit more attractive in certain situations, but it just feels like they're just slightly trying to shift the problem around without actually dealing with it. Issue 6 barrage there basically gets changed into the barrage of the Sis 3, so it costs a bit, but it has more of an impact. So, that's basically it. P3Ss deal less deflection damage. That's good. They shouldn't give you a high rate of fire weapon, even sort of deflection damage that much, because it just meant you could walk out a bunch of guardsmen and plank most tanks. A lot of damage in there, so that's good. IL-2 there does less damage. Good, means it's going to be less just you need to go in wipe stuff, so that's really good. And then we got the Bren gun being nerfed. They're not nerfing the sections themselves for whatever reasons, they're nerfing the Bren gun. And while of course the Bren gun was nasty, the main issue was, and still is, the infantry section just being massively efficient. And again, a bit like some of the other changes, this doesn't really fix the core issue, it just slightly shifts it about. It's kind of like how with the rifle, rather than just go, alright, rifle blobbing is a problem, let's fix the rifle, now let's just take the smoke away from them. Like, you're not fixing the core issue, which is the rifle were imminently blobbable, you're just making it slightly harder for them, but you're not fixing that they were imminently blobbable and just really, really powerful infantry. And similarly here, they just make it slightly harder to just further snowball with an infantry section blob, or just a bunch of sections, but they're not really changing the fact that most British players don't even bother with Bren guns at the moment. Like, they just go for a bunch of sections, bolster them, and just go to town. Like, they shouldn't have buffed the infantry section like they did, to be honest, in the first place, and this changes absolutely nothing of it. So, this just feels inefficient. Sappers there now apparently cost less to get upgraded. Yeah, we'll see about that. Vickers gets cheaper, faster to build, gains suppression bonus, and still gains somewhat of a range and sight bonus. I'm a bit more worried about that. They could make the Vickers, I think, a bit too good, but then again, they might just still keep spanning sections, so I don't know. I mean, if they nerf the section at the same time properly, there might be some more thing to worry about the Vickers, but overall it's hard to say at the moment. Anti-tank section there, less range and can't be upgraded, keeps them sort of more within range and not, just super utility units. Universal Carrier getting nerfed is pretty good, makes it more easy for the Orbital Commanders to deal with, because they're actually struggling dealing with the Universal Carrier without getting arcade nerf out, which of course meant they then had less to deal with the infantry section, but again, are really good. So this I think is going to have an impact. This is a pretty good change. Half track now requires weapon axe to be unlocked. That just feels, yeah, I mean, might have been a problem in larger team games, but in like 1 versus 1s, that just makes the half track a lot less attractive, I think, for a lot of players. Cromwell is getting nerfed or buffed again, essentially with less fuel. So, I mean, again, they did it just, not too far ago. So it just feels like, again, they're just, shifting the problem around in some way. Threat shot basically shifted back to name ability and so on there. I mean, not much. Again, it just feels like they're shifting about here. But then again, the Centaur's getting nerfed. It's not. I mean, I'm not entirely sure to say. Again, a lot of these changes just feels like, again, the change they made the last patch realised, oh, hey, this is bad, let's do it back, but they're not doing with the infantry section, which is probably one of the bigger ones. So, again, 6-pounder gun pound had a 50% accuracy bonus versus heavy armor. That was just weird, but good to see it removed. Then we get a 50 caliber. They're losing sprint. Suppression is being suppressed, but then it gains the sum on veteran T1 instead. So, yeah, I don't think that really changes a lot with the 50 caliber. The P-47 rocket launcher being nerfed, good. I mean, the problem was you could just call in, they just take out most tanks in the first volley, which I think a lot of people, when you tried to defend it, I think missed out on. Like, it was just, call it in, stuff dies, you didn't have a chance to pull out. It was just an alpha strike. So this being nerfed means it's still dangerous to stick around, but it's not just going to murder your stuff in the first volley in a lot of cases. Greyhound being slightly changed to being better versus infantry. I'm not sure what to make of that. And then we get the Jackson, which essentially just gets a very, very light slap on the wrist here. I mean, it requires more sort of sight, meaning you might be able to ambush it and so on. Then apparently there's some ninja change going, but it actually loses a bit of range and apparently some penetration and actually at long range. But that's about it. In which case it looks slightly better, but overall it just feels like a light slap on the wrist for something that never should have been buffed in the first place, in my opinion. But overall, the Americans pretty much compared to get hit really, really light compared to some of the other factions. I mean, we'll see how it works. I mean, some of the changes are interesting. Who knows, the Panther change the map could prove out to be good. But I mean, overall, it's a bit hard to sort of determine here. There's a lot of changes here on a lot of levels. So I'm having a bit of a harder time sort of fully determining, particularly the mortar changes, for example. I think it's going to be quite wide ranging, plus the population change could also have an impact. So it's a bit sort of difficult, I think, to initially ascertain, except snipers are going to be a lot less spammable. In particular, search sniper spam is, I think, out, which is great, personally. But overall, I think the surge is still going to be strong. For example, the Brits are still, I think, going to be 6% pretty strong. Americans will remain strong. I mean, again, they're barely getting hit at all. Orbital Commanders, I think, is probably one of the major beneficiaries because they're actually getting buffed alongside the Americans. Wehrmacht, and the jury's out on that one, I think. The jury is out on that one for now. And then we get some map changes. Simorsky Winter loses a wooden fence. Simorsky Summer's out, by the way. Simorsky Winter 17-2-2, some change to the Poltava. And, well, that's about it, really, I think. So, I mean, that's basically the spring patch. Again, some good changes, some weird changes, and some changes that just basically either backtracking from previous changes or slightly just trying to shift the problem around but not really dealing with it. I mean, overall, I think that, and again, it's not really dealing with a lot of the core issues. I mean, again, it's not really fixing the Wehrmacht Tier 4 being, kind of doesn't really fix the fact that infantry section is just really, really good, or rifle are kind of good as well. I mean, it doesn't really fix any of sort of the core issues in a lot of ways, except maybe just mortars. And then the weight handles, it just, I think to an extent really leaves the Wehrmacht in a bad spot because they were actually quite reliant on the mortars because, again, of other reasons. So, I mean, it's probably, I think, still better than the December balance patch, to be honest. I mean, in a lot of ways, but I don't know. I mean, again, it's overall better, but you know, again, there's a lot of things I still would have preferred to have seen. I'm sad they didn't add the smoke grenades to the Panzergrenadiers. That way I think they could have added some more utility there and, you know, make Wehrmacht Tier 2 perhaps a bit more useful, which again is an issue. So there you go, Propagandacast news here with the spring balance patch. So let me know what you think of these notes in the comments. I'm off for now. Of course, if you like what I do, consider donating or pledging on Patreon. Links in the video description. Support me if you can. This is Imperial signing off, and see you another time with another video. Cheers.